Hey you, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia, and today I want to share something a little bit personal with you. It's a relationship that cracked me open many years ago and taught me the difference between real love and nervous system chaos. And I want you to actually learn a bit from my relationship and learn the difference between real attraction and real love and what is actually nervous system dysregulation. So, story time. So for the longest time when I was with this person, I thought I was deeply in love with him. I thought that what we had was love because I couldn't stop thinking about him. So this guy, he happened to be a little bit hot and cold. So when he was warm, I felt on top of the world. I felt really attractive. I felt very important. I felt amazing. And when he pulled away, or when he was in his one of his cold modes, I actually started to spiral. So whenever he did that, it triggered a huge amount of anxiety within me, and I would have constant ruminating thoughts about what he was actually doing, who he could be with. My chest tightened, when I had those thoughts. I had very short, quick breaths as well, wasn't breathing very well, and my mind was racing all the time, all over the place. Back then, I had no idea what the nervous system was, what it does, what it means when your nervous system is dysregulated, had no idea what all of those were. And I thought that sort of, reaction towards a person that you were supposedly in love with was very normal. So what I called it passion. I called it intensity, called it chemistry, this push-pull effect that some people have on us. And I thought this was a very normal thing in a relationship. But what I didn't know was that what I was actually feeling back then was nervous system dysregulation. And this is what I now call the recognized phase in healing, when your body starts to tell the truth that your mind hasn't caught up to yet. So what is survival mode in love? Let's talk a little bit about what this actually means. Survival mode, is when your nervous system actually responds to love the same way it would to danger, even if you don't really understand why. So what happens is that your mind may go into fight. So you argue, you control, you confront your partner. It might go into flight mode, where you overthink, you escape, you try to distract yourself. Or you freeze, so you numb, you shut down, you withdraw, you dissociate, you pull away. Or you fawn, so you overgive, you overfunction, you people please, you walk on eggshells around this person, you have no idea what they're feeling, but you want to be around them. So some of the signs that I missed were, number one, feeling panic after what have should been a great date. So anytime we actually were on a date, even during the date itself, I would actually be panicking and overthinking and just being so absorbed in whether he was actually interested in me or not, whether he liked me or not, whether the date was going well, that I didn't even realize that I was just too focused on what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and wasn't really observing him the way I should have. I wasn't really looking out for the red flags, the green flags, the amber flags, because I was so caught up in what I was actually thinking and feeling, and whether the date was actually going right. Another thing that I did was that I obsessively was checking my phone. So every single time this guy that I was seeing, he would only text me after work late at night. And so after I ended classes, I would be frantically checking my phone to see whether he had replied, to see what he had said. Just obsessive, just obsessively doing this, which was very unhealthy and actually triggered a lot of anxiety within me and a lot of uncertainty as well. The third thing that I would actually feel was that I would get butterflies in the stomach, and this were not like exciting, anticipatory, good types of butterflies, but it was the ones where, you feel like your stomach is dropping, that something bad is going to happen. And a little bit of a note here, when you actually have this butterflies in your stomach effect or experience very often in your relationship, it's actually your body signaling to you that this relationship is giving you a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. This is because our stomach or our gut area is very closely linked to stress responses in our body. Okay, so whenever, when you see people who get sick, or when they're very stressed, they tend to get a lot of stomach issues, and that's the reason why. So this is your body actually telling you that this relationship probably isn't really putting you in a very good space. The fourth sign that I missed was the constant trying to guess his mood or predict his silence. This was a very big one because I came from a family where I constantly had to be very hyper vigilant about what my parents were feeling, what they were about to do, whether they were going to fight. So my nervous system had been on edge for decades already by then. So when this guy comes along and he actually reflects that pattern that I actually experienced with my parents in my childhood, where he was just like hot and cold, texted when he wanted to, disappeared when he wanted to, was in his own world and stuff like that. I was constantly on tiptoes, like trying to, predict what he was actually, what was actually happening, trying to second guess where I actually stood with him and where our relationship was actually heading. And this was a very constant thing. So whenever he didn't text me for a few hours, I would actually panic, like really panic. And I used to laugh at people who would panic whenever like their boyfriends didn't text them back or whatever. But for me back then, this was a very real experience, and it's actually really linked to a very anxious attachment style. And it's also a sign that this relationship actually doesn't feel very safe to your body and to you. So most of all, I didn't feel very emotionally safe in the relationship. And it took me decades to actually realize that I'm someone that needs a lot of emotional safety, stability, security from my partner and from my relationship. If not, I tend to kind of spiral a little bit, and I tend to, dip my toes into all those anxious triggers, anxious behaviors. So I didn't feel safe, but I kept telling myself that, this is love, this is normal. Even friends that I spoke to actually said that I was overthinking a lot of things, and this is actually very normal. It's normal for a guy to be hot and cold and stuff like that. Just go through with the experience, it's fine. So that was my experience, and I'm sure, if you're listening to this, you probably have experienced something quite similar with a partner or with, someone that you are seeing, someone that you dated in the past. So I want to kind of talk about why this happens, and why so many of us actually fall into this, this trap or this hole. Because when we grow up in environments where love felt inconsistent, it was unpredictable, it was tied to performance, it was very uncertain, like my household, where I mentioned that my parents tend to fight a lot. And I always had to be very hyper vigilant around what they were actually feeling, what they were going to do, and try to stop the fight and stuff like that, right? And I also grew up in a very performance oriented culture. So when you grow up in cultures like these where there's not a lot of safety or support, and there's not a lot of emotional stability in a sense, you start to associate chaos with connection. You start to associate chaos and disruption with love. So our nervous system then learns that longing for someone, pining for someone, the uncertainty that you feel in a relationship, the unpredictability that this person brings, this is actually love. And calmness, oh my goodness, calmness feels so boring, it's so predictable, it's so lame, and calmness is unsafe. It is too familiar, it is not novel. Does this sound familiar? Because so many people actually think that calmness in dates or in a relationship actually means that the relationship is going stale, when actually it's not. It just means that your relationship is safe and stable. So when someone triggers, comes along and triggers that old emotional blueprint where you never felt emotionally safe as a child, where you always had that, that push-pull, the highs and lows, the unpredictability, the hypervigilance, it feels very familiar to your nervous system. Okay, this is something that you have experienced on a conscious and an unconscious level before. But it's not healthy, okay? It's familiar, yes, because it's a habit and, a story and an experience that's been built into your body and your life experience, but it's not healthy, okay? It's not love. It's a very vicious loop, actually. And this is the moment your body actually enters what I call the recognized phase, and I will put a link to a video where I actually talk about the different phases in healing in my own coaching system. Okay, the recognized phase is when something deep inside you says, this isn't passion, this isn't love, this is actually survival. Okay, this is survival, this is disruption, this is chaos, and I've actually felt this before. Okay, so we talked quite a bit about disruptive, relationships, unpredictable relationships. What then does love actually feel like? Okay, what does love actually feel like in your body? Okay, some examples. You breathe easier around them. You are not constantly tracking their tone or their timing or when they're going to text you or when they are going to appear or materialize on your doorstep, when they're going to cancel a date, when they're going to change their mind, okay? You don't have to do any of that because they are very consistent in their behaviors. They're very predictable in many ways. And predictability brings safety. And another sign is that you feel more like yourself, not less of yourself. The relationship or the person brings out the best in you. So you want to actually just be yourself, the unfiltered version of yourself. You feel free being yourself. You feel like, authentic. You want to show the real side of yourself to this person and to bring the real side of yourself to this relationship. And you don't feel small. The relationship or the person doesn't make you feel small and invisible. Another sign, okay, of how love actually feels like in your body is you don't actually mistake withdrawal for mystery, or you don't mistake hot and cold, especially cold, unpredictable behavior, for a person trying to be mysterious or private or guarded, and you don't make all this, come up with all these reasons for them, okay? Real love is steady, okay? Of course, you have your fights, of course, you have your highs and lows as a couple, but it's very steady, it's consistent. If you plot it on a graph, it's actually relatively straight line, okay? It's not a roller coaster. It's actually something that anchors your life. So you feel seen. You don't feel like you are invisible or like you are scrambling to find out where you stand with this person. You feel held. You feel safe. You don't feel like you're on a constant emotional high and low, not really knowing when you'll be going high and then not really knowing when you will actually come down. Okay? And you feel safe. You feel safe. You feel stable. You don't feel exhausted. You don't feel like the relationship drains you. And you don't feel like you have to be, to put on a certain front, to filter out parts of yourself just to show up in the relationship. So, when I moved on from this guy that, the one that mirrored my nervous system dysregulation, and I experienced the kind of very safe, quiet love with someone else, it felt very weird at first, because when your nervous system is so wired for dysregulation and for dysfunction, anything that feels normal, that is normal, and is predictable and calm, it actually feels really dull and boring at first. I wasn't used to it. I kept thinking, well, is this person actually really my person, or am I actually getting this wrong? But then I realized, I was just no longer addicted to adrenaline. I was no longer addicted to the pain. I was no longer addicted to the uncertainty that came with being with the previous person. Okay, in other words, well, I think I've healed in some ways. Okay, and I would like to also kind of give you some, clues, somatic and energetic clues as to how your body is actually speaking to you when you are in a relationship or when you're on a date. So even if you're not into energy work, your body is giving you all sorts of signs and all sorts of signals. Okay, your body is your intuitive GPS, your energetic radar. So, of course, if you remove more of the noise from your life, you'll be better able to tune into your intuition and your inner voice, and you'll receive, guidance that is almost immediate. But, that's another video for another day, which I will create some other time. But right now, just some of these energetic tips that you can take away with you. When you wake up each morning, don't immediately get out of bed, don't immediately look at your phone, but just lay on your bed, lay still, breathe, take deep breaths in and out, and then ask yourself, where do I feel tight in my body? Where do I feel uncomfortable? Is there some sort of pain or tension? And is there somewhere that I just, it just doesn't feel right, but I can't really put my finger on why or what, but it just doesn't feel right. Stay with that moment. Okay, stay with that. The next question to ask yourself, where do I feel open? Where you feel like, hey, this feels okay, this feels comfortable, this feels relaxing. Like my body, this part of my body is not tensed. So you'll notice, some connections, some dates, some relationships, they actually make your chest soften. When you actually speak to the person, you feel relaxed, your body relaxes. Whereas others, they make it very tensed, very tight, very, it just doesn't really make you feel very good in your body. And that, I want to say, is not your imagination. That is actually your nervous system telling you that one person is safe for your nervous system, whereas the other person is not. And this is where I guide clients in my spiral model. Okay, it's a 4-step model, and we start here in the recognize phase. So because clarity is the beginning of all healing, you can't change what you haven't really seen yet, but really recognizing these signs, these symptoms, the signals in your experiences in your body will actually make you well equipped to heal from nervous system dysregulation or any other dysregulation you're feeling in your life, and move towards a life that you really, really want. If this video stirred something in you, if you recognize yourself in this, if you're currently undergoing nervous system dysregulation in a relationship or on a date, I actually want to invite you into deeper support. I'm offering free beta coaching right now, so if you'd like to walk through the spiral process with me from recognize all the way to reclaim, this is a great time to do so and to unpack what you are actually going through right now. You can also read more in my books. I go deeper into trauma loops, nervous system healing, and what true love really feels like, and I link all my books down below. And if you're curious about your energy type in relationships, I offer free 八字 clarity readings too. And 八字 readings are a form of Asian metaphysics that I found to be really, really useful to my life. Okay, way more useful than astrology, MBTI, or whatever has been. And it's really, really accurate. And if this helped, please like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone you love, because your body is already guiding you home. You're not broken, you are waking up, and your body knows the way, so trust it. Thank you so much for listening to this video, and I will see you in the next one.